Ready?
I believe so. I don't know how to tell if Scott's ready, but I'm assuming he is.
I'm assuming Scott's ready. Trustee Cavness, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Mendocino County Board of Retirement meeting for April 16th, 2025 is called to order at 8:30 a.m. Doris, roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Ms. Cavness?
Here.
Ms. Cubison?
Here.
Mr. Cromer?
Here.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Swope?
Here.
Mr. Land?
Here. Okay.
I wasn't called.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Haschek. I
Here.
was using an old list.
Here.
Thank you. My apologies.
Okay, that moves us to the consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are to be approved by one action without discussion unless a board member requests separate action on a specific item. Does any trustee wish to pull an item from consent for discussion? Seeing none, is there any public comment? Nothing online?
There's no public comment.
Okay, the consent agenda is approved by unanimous consent. Item number 2, Historical Benefit Review Project Status Report and Project Updates. Doris Rentschler, Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Land. I've provided the quarterly report to the board on the status of the Historical Benefit Correction Project. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything right now. I did actually just shorten up the report and only show the activity for this calendar year rather than all of those past years, just to save display space.
Okay, do we have any board discussion? And is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay, that brings us to item number 3, investment matters. Items A and B have been postponed. And so that brings us to item C. Robert, this is the preliminary monthly investment report, performance report. Robert Revelis.
Trustees, you have the monthly performance report in front of you. As you can see, we're down about 16 million. This is in partial run-up to what's been going on. I'm sure all of you probably heard something in the news related to the new administration and tariffs and some excitement in the financial markets. So I have a few comments just briefly on that. In case anybody wasn't aware, on April 2nd, the U.S. stock market and bond markets began to sell off due to Trump's reciprocal tariff announcements. The plan is basically 2 parts: impose a 10% tariff on all imports into the U.S. and additional country-specific tariffs on imports from 57 countries with significant trade deficits. On April 9th, Trump announced a 90-day pause on country-specific tariffs for countries that didn't announce retaliatory tariffs. Most of those tariffs were paused, so the new tariffs would be starting July 8th, 2025. The announcement caused a slight bounce back as markets gained some of the previous week's losses. As far as our portfolio status, as of yesterday, the portfolio totals $722 million, which is down about $16.5 million or 2.5% from the end of March. We're down 4.25% since February. We started the fiscal year at $15 million, and so we currently have a small positive return. At one point, the portfolio was down to around less than $690 million. Wow. So there's been a nice bounce back. As far as our target allocations, we're within target ranges. From the end of February through just last week, the U.S. equity markets have sold off almost 10%, 9.75%, while the international markets sold off only 2%. Our fixed income allocation is down almost 1.5%. So being diversified in this particular time frame is really showing the value and the worth of that. Without rebalancing, we're underweight. U.S. equities almost 200 basis points, and we're slightly overweight 100 basis points between international and fixed income. So we're still within our target ranges, which is a good thing. Finally, I wanted to update the board on the transition update to the new portfolio structure. We've agreed to terms with SSGA. We're waiting on confirmation for our account to be ready for funding. We expect that sometime this week, by the end of the week, hopefully. We're reviewing the agreements for Artisan and Brandis. We expect to start funding SSGA by the end of the month, hopefully. I say hopefully because we don't really want to be forcing transaction with extreme market volatility. So we're waiting for things to settle down a little bit. I'd like to see at least the VIX down below 20 for a couple days, hopefully by the end of the month before we start making that transition, because we'll be out of the market for a day. We're going to be moving about $150 million from the end of this month through the end of June. I hope to have the new structure in place by the start of the new year. So end of June, hopefully we'll be done. And that's all I have to say. Any questions, comments?
To be fair, you
Trustee
mean the start of
Crowe.
the new fiscal year.
Start of the new fiscal
Thank
year.
you.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
So it was up by several million from the start of the fiscal, you said 6
Yeah.
total?
Yep.
But
Yeah.
we had fallen below that,
Well below that.
well below that.
Yeah. Down to 690 million.
Okay, is there any other board discussion on this item? Is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay, that moves us to item number 4. Quarterly board priorities work plan and strategic calendar update. Doris Rentschler, Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Land. The quarterly board priority work plan is provided. I wanted to let you know that the cells that were highlighted in yellow indicate items that were completed since the last quarterly report was presented, and the beige color indicates items where the target due date has been modified. Newly added to the report on the bottom of page 2 are new objectives regarding the agreed upon procedure audits that we'll be undertaking in the new fiscal years. So if there's any questions regarding that, I'm happy to address it. The last couple of pages are the board's strategic calendar. If you have any questions regarding the calendar or the work plan, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Is there any discussion from any board member? Is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay, that will bring us to item number 5. Board policy review. Doris Rentschler, Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Land. We have quite a few items for review of the board. The majority of them had relatively minor edits. So I will direct your attention to the Audit Committee Charter. We did provide that both in a red line and a clean version to make it easier for you to read. That charter was substantially rewritten in order to add responsibilities associated with the internal audit activities. We also have with us via Zoom is Larry Jensen with Audit and Risk Management Services. He's the consultant we used to establish our entity-wide risk-based assessment, and he also helped with the RFP process. So at this point, if you have any questions regarding the modifications to the Audit Committee Charter, I'm happy to address those now.
Any questions? Any questions on any of the other 5 items?
The other item I'd like to potentially point out to trustees is The executive director performance evaluation policy only has minor edits, but I did make some changes to the evaluation form to align the topics listed there in the same language as they are listed in the policy. And then in addition, I created a new separate evaluation for staff to use, which asks different questions because I thought that might be a benefit to the board. If there's any questions regarding the new staff evaluation policy for the executive director, not the policy, rather the form, or any other comments regarding any of the edits there, I'm happy to address any questions or take any feedback.
Are there any questions? Is there any other board discussion on item 5 at this time?
Let's see. Sorry about this, but I was reviewing it this morning, and it was one of, I think it was the second one on our agenda, 5B, I think, that had deleted a lot of the 3-year requirement for review. And I was just wondering if you could, do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm pulling it up. Some of them show as deletions because they were moved to somewhere else in the policy, so let me just look for that.
Yeah, I saw one went to a green.
Yeah, that means it was removed from one area and
Yes,
put
yes.
into
Okay.
a different area. It was relocated. Do you have the item number? Oh, an item number 6 in the annual financial audit area of the policy, that does state that the committee shall review at least every 3 years the performance and independence of the external financial auditor, including the impact of any non-audit services performed for MSARA by the auditors or any affiliation thereof on such independence. So there is a 3-year review at that point on the financial auditor.
Right, okay.
So that was just moved from the lower portion up to a different section.
Also, I'm sorry if I could just add to that, under that same section there, item number 1 has overseen the recruitment of the external financial auditor every 3 years and make
Except-
recommendations to the board.
I did actually modify that and struck because I didn't want to imply that we would be RFPing every 3 years, and maybe that was not your intent. But the committee does review our external auditors and would make a recommendation to the board upon their contract coming towards an end, whether to do an extension of the contract. Often they're written like a 3+1+1, or whether to RFP. So I didn't want to imply that we always have to RFP on the 3rd year. That's really at the board's discretion. We do plan, I think, to do an RFP the next time the auditor's contract is up. Is that correct? Anyway, I can certainly re-add that language there. I just didn't want to make it that we had to do some sort of RFP action.
Right, I agree. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, that was what I saw. The concern was deleting those 3-year requirements.
So the audit committee does oversee the recruitment of an auditor. So I did modify the at least every 3 years because we do have the option of retaining the auditor beyond a 1 3-year term, and that's why the language was struck there. But it is the committee's purview to review the performance of our external auditors and take action to request that we open an RFP to replace them or extend a contract or anything like that. That is the purview of the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is actually an action item, and it does require a motion. The recommended motion is to approve the policies as presented or as amended by the board if you have any changes you'd like to see.
I move to accept everything, the policies as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Doris, would you like to conduct the vote?
Yes, sir. Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
Public comment.
Yes, we would have to have public, any board discussion, first of all, after the motion? And public comment.
There is no public comment, Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Cavness?
Yes.
Ms. Cubison?
Yes.
Mr. Cromer?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Swope?
Mr. Shoemaker has voted.
Oh, sorry. I am new at this. I apologize. Mr. Haschek
Yes.
and Mr. Land.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion passes. And that brings us to item 6. Audit Committee recommendation regarding agreed upon procedures. Auditor AUP engagement, Doris Rentschler, Executive Director, and Catherine Cavness, Audit Committee Chair.
Did you have any comments you'd like to make, Ms. Cavness?
No, I personally, I don't. Happy that about our decision of selecting Macias, Gini, and O'Connell LLP. And we had 6 choices and reviewed, and it was a unanimous decision to pick this particular internal auditor.
So the recommendation as presented in the memo from Trustee Cavness and myself is to authorize me to engage with Macias, Gini, and O'Connell to negotiate a contract for the agreed upon procedures audits. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to address those at this time.
I just would want to comment that that I thought you guys did a great job presenting the RFP discussions. I was glad that it was not up to me to read all of those. That would have been very difficult for me to make a lot of sense out of it. And I thought the process was very positive. So.
I think there was a lot of value in having Larry work with us on the RFP process and on the evaluation of the RFP responses. I was pleased that we actually did receive 6 proposals. And the selected firm was chosen because of the detail in their work plan that also listed specific risks for each type of audit that they were to agreed upon procedure that they were to perform. So as Catherine mentioned, the audit committee was unanimous in making this recommendation to the board. This is an action item that will require a motion.
Okay, on that subject, do we have a motion?
I'll move the recommended action.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Are there any public comments?
There is no public comment.
All right, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Cavness?
Aye.
Ms. Cubison?
Aye.
Mr. Cromer?
Aye.
Mr. Shoemaker?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Haschek?
Aye.
Mr. Land?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, let's move on to item number 7, administrative report. Doris Rentschler, Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Land. I provided the administrative report. I would like to mention that I had the opportunity to present at an SEIU meeting information on the retirement system. The presentation was well received and we had a lot of engagement there, and I do appreciate Patrick Hickey's with SEIU allowing me to take some time out of their meeting to talk about retirement for their folks. So I also wanted to announce that we have a new retirement specialist. We have had a vacant position that we did fill. Octavio Quintero started with us this week, and he's here today, so take an opportunity to say hello to him. We're happy to have him on board. And there is some information regarding the SACRS legislative update. The March report was, or excuse me, the April report was not actually posted to the public website yesterday. I didn't find out and asked that it be added this morning. It was on the SharePoint site if you happen to look there. If you have any questions regarding the legislative report from SACRS, I'm happy to address that. There is one item that is causing some discussion among the serial systems, which is AB 1383, which would essentially make modifications to PEPRA to change the way in which the compensation limit cap is calculated. And then also it would affect safety membership tiers if implemented by creating new safety formulas. And eliminating the requirement that employees must pay 50% of the normal cost and allow that to be opened back up for negotiation by labor groups. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to try to address those.
Do we have any questions? I'm assuming Trustee Haschek does, as he is fumbling with his microphone.
Yeah, this microphone is messed up.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll just.
Leave it on. All right.
There you go.
Let's see. Yeah, so we have this list of legislation, and I don't see any recommendation for any kind of support or oppose or anything on them. So does SACRS not do that?
They sometimes do. And they have not taken a position on these bills at this time. The one that I mentioned, Bill AB 1383, is considered to primarily impact the employers because it's the employers who have decided which pension formula and the PEPRA regulations we were going to use. And the employers are the ones who are impacted by the increase in the PEPRA salary cap because they would need to pay pension contributions on that. So I believe in my discussion with Jeff that he felt that that was really more of an employer issue, that employers could choose to take a position on that bill in support or opposition to it, but that it wouldn't necessarily be a position for the retirement system itself.
So, where would we find more detail on?
If you search for AB 1383, it will bring it up. I'm happy to send a link out once I get back to my office and provide that to you. The original version really only addressed the PEPRA salary cap and the safety changes and the changes to the amount of normal cost that could be picked up by the employer were amendments to that bill. I believe it's in committee currently.
And on the safety side, is it your understanding that that's for active PEPRA members only, and it wouldn't be retroactive to other tiers, or?
It is written such that a new formula has to be adopted that would be effective for new employees after January 1st, 2026, but then authorizes the employers to negotiate a higher or lower formula for existing members to address that issue. The changes to the PEPRA formula were twofold. One was a reduction from age 57 to age 55 as far as when the maximum benefit multiplier would be in effect. And the other was a change in the benefit multiplier. So the, for example, we currently use the 2.7% at age 57 formula for our safety members. Under the proposed bill, The new highest formula is 3% at age 55. It's 2.7 at 55 in the middle tier and 2.5, I believe, at 55 in the lowest PEPRA formula. So it went from like 2% to 2.5, 2.5 to 2.7, 2.7 to 3. But the ages on all of the tiers where the maximum multiplier is reached dropped from 57 to 55.
If that is added, a new tier would be created though. Like two safety people sitting next to each other across the old PEPRA and new PEPRA would all be in different tiers.
I would recommend that it actually be treated as a new tier and not as they had done here where they considered it the same tier and you had enhanced and unenhanced benefit calculation. I would have this input as a new tier.
That's clearer.
It is clearer, it's easier to program the system and to ensure that the calculations are correct. I do not believe that there is any modification to the government code that would permit this to be applied retroactively in any way. So even if it was negotiated for existing safety members, let's say we went to the 2.7 at 55 or something instead of 2.7 at 57, it would, that wouldn't really cause much of an issue because it's just a change in the age at which the maximum benefit is reached. But if it went to the 3%, then we would definitely have some years calculated at our existing 2.7 formula and some years calculated at the 3% formula if that's what the county had adopted if this bill is enacted.
And for some reason, I see the administrative report on our website, but I don't see the link for the legislative update.
I did ask that get posted
Yeah.
this morning, but I don't know if that email was read. I found out after 5 p.m. last night that it hadn't been posted to the public site. It isn't posted to the SharePoint.
Thank you.
It is now.
It is. Hit refresh on
All right.
your
Thank you.
page and it should be there. My apologies. I was out at the end of last week and I actually didn't check that until late yesterday.
I'm sure we'll have more conversations if that bill progresses, so.
I'm sure we will. I did notify the executive office and the budget folks to give them a heads up that should any of this be enacted, it would affect them mid-budget year because it does go into effect 1/1/2026.
Nobody's going to Sackers from staff, no.
Right now, no one is scheduled to go to Sackers. Are you going?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know, Judy didn't tell me you were going. Did we take care of your registration and everything? Oh, great. I did not put on the agenda the proxy vote. I'm not sure if Jeff would be authorized to vote on behalf of the plan.
I'm planning to come back on Thursday. They
Oh,
do that
then-
on Friday.
Then that would be irrelevant, yes.
Have you seen the agenda for the conference?
No, I mean, I really go for the afternoon. There's like a 3-4 hour attorney roundtable. That's what I really go for.
Did you want to see the agenda? Are you interested in attending?
No, I'm not, I'm not going to attend, but I was interested in the agenda and what current,
I can certainly send you the agenda.
that'd be great, financial status that's going on, if Sackers, if any of the larger groups of retirement systems throughout the country are actually trying to address to the federal government impacts to the systems.
I don't believe that was on the agenda because the agenda was finalized well before a lot of the changes as far as changes to federal funding of certain programs. And in some ways, that's more of an employer issue. We don't directly receive any federal funding, but the employers are certainly subject to reductions in the federal pass-through dollars for a number of programs.
I was trying to address more just the effect on returns for agencies overall.
Yeah.
There has been statements out of the administration that only 8% of Americans are in the stock market. I just find that appalling.
I did not know that.
And stock market through their retirement system.
And I think they were talking about individual accounts, not people who have exposure through something like 401k or even a defined benefit plan. But
This is with the power of all the retirement systems coming together at one time. Could have an influence of some sort. Maybe.
All right, do we have any other board discussion on this item? Is there any public comment?
there is no public comment.
Okay, that moves us to item 8, general board discussion. Is there any items that any members would like to discuss?
I'm full of them today. I was wondering if the board would be interesting to get a re-report, I'll call it, on our decision about no cost of living for employees. I think that,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
we have a policy of no cost of living for pepper.
No COLA?
That was adopted by the Board of Supervisors and would require an act of the Board of Supervisors to modify that.
I thought we had some action in that, some participation.
I don't believe so. I'd be happy to double check on that, but the benefit formula was actually adopted by the Board of Supervisors, which specified at that point that there was no COLA. If a COLA is indeed added to any of the PEPRA tiers, it would be prospectively only and would not apply to years of service earned prior to the enactment of a COLA.
And so I guess my question is, would this board be interested in discussing, recommending to the board that they reconsider that policy? And if it is can be made effective a day forward, I think that's, that makes it simpler.
I think it would be interesting to look into that and review it because it's sort of a double-edged sword. It doesn't help with recruitment for new employees not to have a COLA, so they're.
Yes.
So on the council, I don't make policy or try to push you in one direction as a board one way or another, but I think that relates to the legislation that's passing and that's really a question for labor negotiations between the employer and the unions and their representatives. And I think you need to really be cautious about entering into issues about related to benefits.
Well, I was elected by retirees and which were employees. I just thought it was an issue that's of importance that I don't believe we covered well past. But the county has not covered well. So, I'm confident if nobody's interested in discussing it, fine. Another meeting.
Yeah, does anybody have, trustee?
Well, just to go off of that, what would be the process? Because for the board to make a decision like that, there must have been a recommendation from the retirement board or someone, or
We
was it
did
just
help with an
straight through
actuarial
negotiation?
cost study
Yeah,
that was performed prior to them adopting the initial PEPRA formulas and et cetera. So we did help facilitate by having a cost study performed. The retirement system, to my knowledge, did not put forth a recommendation specifically on which formula the Board of Supervisors should adopt or whether or not to include a COLA. I have not gone back to look at the actual materials from late 2012 where the Board of Supervisors took action on that, but I don't believe there was an actual recommendation from the Board of Retirement, but we did help facilitate by doing a cost study.
It's so, it's my understanding that this board is not supposed to opine on the level of benefits that the plan sponsor provides. We're just supposed to tell them how much it's going to cost to provide those benefits when we're sitting here. If you're asking how this would change, though, that would probably be a discussion most likely that would be initiated by one of the bargaining units in an attempt to increase benefits. But I don't think that this board would have an opinion on that. That's what we were instructed at the Pepperdine training that I went to specifically.
Correct. This board's obligation is to administer the benefits as adopted by the plan sponsors or the county. We do make recommendations on certain optional provisions that affect administration of the benefits, but we don't have a role in setting the actual benefit formulas. The item that you mentioned, Labor has brought this up and has in the past contacted me about how they would go about obtaining a cost study, but that was never pursued. I don't think the county really had wanted to open the door to that. But I actually had received questions about that in the past regarding the process. The government code would require a cost study be done, and it requires so much public notice, and the materials have to be available for review for a certain set period of time before the board can take action on them, things of that nature that are outlined in the government code regarding this. So in addition to the cost study, there's a couple of timing issues that are all related to the government code that would, but we can certainly, if there's a request from the Board of Supervisors or from Labor, look at running a cost study, and that is done at they would pay for that cost study. The system doesn't pay for it. We would charge that out to either the labor group or the employers.
Is there any other board discussion?
Yeah, I
Trustee
had to
Cohen.
leave last meeting early, but I did finish watching the small cap presentations, and I just wanted to express gratitude to all the members that participated in that process. I know it was a long process to reorganize some of our investments and the strategies used there, but I feel like we made it to the finish line, and I really appreciated Callan's input and guidance during that process. I felt like they were very valuable to us as trustees making those difficult decisions. So thank you all.
I also would like to forward an item about the Sackers meeting. I guess it's a little bit unfortunate that none of the other than our council nobody's going to be attending. I don't know how we can encourage people. I know that it would be hard for me to have done this. I also, have another meeting that I'm going to for my day job at almost the same time. So it would have been very difficult for me to go. I'd just like to encourage participation in Sackers.
And actually, Sackers did reach out to me when I told them that I didn't submit any voting proxy for the board of directors because we didn't have trustee or staff attending. And Sulema did ask, what can Sackers do to help support and encourage attendance? I told her I thought one of the biggest issues is just travel, because so many of their events are in Southern California, and it's not always easy to get there from here. So, whether they act on that, they do have some items up north. They kind of rotate them back and forth, but this year both events are relatively far south. One Sackers conference is in Palm Springs, and the other is going to be in Huntington Beach. So neither one of them is easy travel distance from here.
I often try to suggest, having some of the Sackers conferences more northern, and I think Sulema was saying it's difficult to find the right.
They need a lot
place.
of space.
Yeah.
I do believe they've had them in Napa in the past, and maybe in the
Monterey.
San Jose, Monterey also area. But, I don't have any control over that part. I would encourage you to go. There are a number of conferences that can be beneficial. I was glad to see so much participation at the Calipers General Assembly. I think that was a really good program this year.
It was.
Okay.
stuff sending Friday.
Can he make a comment on the budget?
Absolutely, of course.
Trustees, we just wanted to let you know, we're going to be sending out a preliminary budget for your review, comments, suggestions on Friday. It'll be the typical 10-page report that you would see for the new year, but it'll include a very short narrative memo.
We're asking for your feedback, and I believe the due date to get feedback from the trustees regarding on anything that they would like to amend, add, or change in the proposed budget would be May 2nd. That certainly will be highlighted in the email when it gets sent out to you. But according to the budget policy, we do provide you at least 2 weeks to review that, and then we'll get that back, incorporate potential feedback received from this process, and bring the budget to the May meeting potentially for adoption. Our last opportunity would be the June meeting if there's any additional changes at the May meeting. Thank you, I forgot about that.
All right. Any further board discussion? Okay, so the next item is item 9. I'm going to put one more board discussion. This is a legendarily short meeting. And so item 9, adjournment and notice of the next Board of Retirement meeting. The next Board of Retirement meeting will be held in the Mendocino County Employees Retirement Association Boardroom, 625B Kings Court, Ukiah, California, on Wednesday, May 21st, 2025 at 8:30 a.m. And the meeting is adjourned at 10 after 9.
Wow. Yay. I'm calling it 9/11. Because that's what it says right there.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you. Thanks, Larry. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.